Living on a jet plane, Oregon retiree turns a Boeing 727 into a home. If you wander through the woods surrounding Portland, Oregon and find yourself near the city's western Hillsborough suburb, you might come across a strange sight. Hidden between the pines, propped up on two massive concrete pillars, is a Boeing 727 passenger jetliner. At first, you might think it has crash-landed there and had been salvaged. But in actuality, the plane has been placed there very intentionally, by one man with a very unique vision. Who is this person, and why has he bought and placed a perfectly good plane in the middle of a forest? Lost in the field. If you look at aerial photos of the woods in southwestern Hillsborough, you might come across a curious shape tucked away between the fields and trees. In a small stretch of unobtrusive, cleared-out land rests a Boeing 727. Between the 1960s and late 80s, Boeing 727s were some of the most widely used planes by major international airlines. But as they began to be phased out in the 1990s, their prices dropped. Retired planes are usually ground up for scraps, but in 1999, a man by the name of Bruce Campbell purchased one of these iconic jetliners with very specific plans in mind, saving the plane from destruction. A Boeing 727-200 stands at 34 feet and 11 inches, a little over 10.5 meters tall, boasts a wingspan of 108 feet, 32 meters, a length of 153 feet and 2 inches, nearly 47 meters, and a floor space of 1,066 square feet. That's a pretty large space of sleek, industrial design to be found in a forest. But as far as Bruce Campbell is concerned, that's exactly the point. He bought the plane for around $100,000 shortly before it was scheduled to be scrapped, and after meticulous planning, positioned it in a stretch of land that he bought back in the 1970s. So who is Bruce Campbell? And what were his plans for the plane? Masterful works of aerospace science. Campbell is a retired, 65-year-old electrical engineer. When he purchased his Boeing 727, he did so with one simple purpose: to live in it. When properly executed, Bruce explains, the remarkable appeal of a retired jetliner as a home springs from the magnificent technology and beauty of the sculptured structure itself. Jetliners are masterful works of aerospace science, and their superlative engineering grace is unmatched by any other structures people can live within. They're incredibly strong, durable, and long-lived, and they easily withstand any earthquake or storm. Climbing inside. Masterful works of aerospace science. Campbell is a retired, 65-year-old electrical engineer. When he purchased his Boeing 727, he did so with one simple purpose: to live in it. When properly executed, Bruce explains, the remarkable appeal of a retired jetliner as a home springs from the magnificent technology and beauty of the sculptured structure itself. Jetliners are masterful works of aerospace science, and their superlative engineering grace is unmatched by any other structures people can live within. They're incredibly strong, durable, and long-lived, and they easily withstand any earthquake or storm. Climbing inside. Since he first brought the plane to his little plot of land, Bruce has been tinkering with it. The 727, which, aside from its engines, stands almost completely intact, serves as a huge canvas for the retired electrical engineer's creative inclinations. Changing lighting, wiring, and other systems, Bruce has managed to convert the plane into more than just a fully functioning home. It is, in his words, an aerospace-class castle. But what does a castle look like when you climb up the plane's stairs? Bigger than you think. When we think of passenger jetliners, we think of cramped legroom and being stuffed like sardines between sweaty strangers. But when you clear a plane of its seating and take a moment to walk through it, you begin to realize just how huge commercial aircraft really are. With its huge floor space, a Boeing 727 can carry up to nearly 200 passengers, their luggage, as well as a flight crew, food trolleys, emergency equipment, and more. When all of that is cleared away, what's left is essentially a huge hall, ready to be used in whatever creative ways its owners can come up with. And Bruce Campbell is nothing if not creative. Fully functional, almost. When Bruce bought the plane, He tried to keep it as fully functional as he could with one important reservation. The plane's engines were removed. Purchasing the plane with its engines intact would have made it much more expensive. And since Bruce had no intention of moving the plane ever again, after he positioned it in his little stretch of land, he decided he could do without them. But while the engines are missing, the rest of the plane systems is present and entirely functional. Space in the hole. The plane provides endless nooks and crannies for Bruce to explore and convert into functional spaces. But since there is so much space, and Bruce is a naturally frugal man, much of the plane's compartments remain empty, just waiting for him to come up with creative ideas to use them for. If you wander through Brucey's part of the forest and climb to the plane, you might not find him right away, but rest assured, he's probably crawling around somewhere inside the plane structure, house cleaning. Living on a jet plane comes with its fair share of perks, as well as challenges. Because the plane is pressurized, there's hardly any need to clean it from the inside, as it rarely gets dusty and no insects can crawl inside its fuselage. Still being placed in the middle of a forest, it does get covered in leaves and foliage, and the exterior requires some extreme cleaning measures. Every 2 years, Bruce brings out a high-pressure water hose and hoses down the plane's body, forcing out any growths or dirt that may have accumulated in hard-to-reach spaces. Buying the plane. In 1999, the Greek airline, Olympic Airlines, retired its last Boeing 727-200. Bruce knew that this was the model of plane that he wanted, and had been scouring the international market for a retired plane for several years at that point. With the help of a salvage company, Bruce purchased the plane, had it flown from Athens, Greece to Portland, and began the process of dismantling it and transporting it to his stretch of forest. But how much did the plane cost? Regrets. Looking back at the decisions he's made when purchasing the plane, Bruce now says he would have done things differently. In an attempt to save money, he allowed the salvage company to pick through the plane, taking seats, electronic systems, and even food trolleys before he placed the plane on his property. In retrospect, Bruce feels like this was a mistake. He feels that planes are such marvelous feats of design and engineering that taking anything out of them, except, of course, the engines, is a shame even when attempting to convert them into homes. Exploring, the more Bruce explored the spaces his new home had to offer, the more he started to feel like the learning experience of repurposing a jetliner into a house was just a means of preparing for another, bigger project. It wasn't yet clear to him what that project would be, but he knew that with his newfound experience and insights, it would be big and impressive. World citizen. Bruce Campbell may live in a retired airplane in Oregon, but he also has a life in Japan. He splits his year between the two locations, 6 months here and 6 months there. But while he loves living in the land of the rising sun, his passion for his aerospace castle keeps him coming back to the forests of Oregon time after time. But in recent years, he started thinking about something that would allow him to live both in Oregon and Japan, and still have an airplane home year-round. Spending time in the cockpit. Although Brucey's plane will never fly again, he still loves spending time in the cockpit. A self-professed technology nerd, rewiring the cockpit's wealth of buttons, switches, and levers to perform different functions in his home is an endless project that he takes great pleasure in. But perhaps the coolest thing he's done with his cockpit was to turn it into his home entertainment center. Planning ahead. Brucey's plans for Japan are simple. He wants to build an airplane home on Japanese soil, but this time he wants to build it bigger, better, and more faithful to the original plane's interior design. He has his sights set on an older model of Boeing 747 jetliners and is scouring the internet for planes that are about to be decommissioned. This time around, he says, he won't work with a salvage company, but rather will try to keep as much of the plane as possible, except, once more, for its engines. Not always cozy. While the plane is always clean and roomy, there is one challenge Bruce has had to deal with when occupying what is essentially a long metal tube with wings: climate control. Oregon winters are notoriously long and cold, and while Bruce has found adequate ways to heat up the rear of the plane, its front end can get quite chilly. Even approaching outside, below freezing temperatures at times, making the plane comfortable. Currently, one of Brucey's biggest projects on the plane is getting temperature control back online. Considering a plane's air conditioning systems are linked to its engine functions, this isn't a trivial undertaking, but Bruce, ever the tinkerer, is working hard at it and hopes to get things back up and running sometime soon. Until then, he tries to bundle up as best he can. A regular house after all. While Brucey's plane may be very different from a regular home in many ways, in many other ways, it's just like any other home. And when you spend enough time there, the novelty can sometimes wear off. Familiar house chores like vacuuming, dusting, and cleaning are an integral part of living on a Boeing 727, and Bruce is so casual about it. Even first-time visitors can sometimes forget they're in one of the most unique houses on the planet. There is no doubt that Bruce Campbell has chosen an odd home for his retirement, but while it may strike many as a strange project that provides more work and sacrifice than any other type of home you could imagine for Bruce, his airplane house provides the perfect habitat. If you're wondering what it took to build his house and what projects he has planned next, Bruce has built a website where he updates the world about his projects. airplanehome.com. And whatever you might think, it's impossible to deny that he did things his way.